One of the fascinating aspects of Christian spirituality is its ironies. And one of its greatest ironies is this, that you and I are made strong, you and I are made resilient through our weaknesses, not our strengths. Now that's an amazing paradox, and it's an encouraging paradox to me, because my life is filled with plenty of weaknesses. There are plenty of times in my life where I'm not sure I even have the strength to face this or that. And what is foundational in Christian spirituality, that it's actually through our weaknesses that we become strong. This partly comes out of a story found in the Hebrew Scriptures. It's an old story where the character of Jacob is in a wrestling match with God. It's an Old Testament story that you can read about. Jacob's trying to figure out his life. He's overwhelmed in his life. He's not sure he's going to make it through this certain situation that faces him the next day as he's going to meet his brother for the first time in so many years. He is so overwhelmed and feeling weak in his life, and suddenly he's in a wrestling match with God. And in the wrestling match, God shoots a wrestling move, where it actually wounds the largest muscle in Jacob's body, his hip. Well, I won't explain the whole story here, but Jacob wins that wrestling match. But for the rest of Jacob's life, he walks with a limp. And what is foundational in our Christian spirituality is this, that when we end up walking strong in this life, when we end up enduring and being resilient with all the things that we face, it came about through our weaknesses, and we walk with limps in this life to prove as such. So this morning I want to talk to you about what it means to be made resilient through our weaknesses. This is such an important thing in our Christian spirituality. You know, Jesus was an iconoclast. What that means is Jesus challenged the conventional wisdom of what was happening in his day. I think deep Christian spirituality should still challenge the conventional wisdom of our day. And one of the conventional wisdoms of our day is this, that if we are going to be strong in this life, if we are going to succeed in this life, well, then we need to focus on our strengths. We need to get better. And when it comes to our weaknesses, we need to erase them, run from them, hide them, and get rid of them. That's the conventional wisdom. But deep Christian spirituality holds onto the paradox that we are actually made strong through our weaknesses. Now, early in Christian history, when the Apostle Paul was writing parts of the New Testament, and he was specifically writing to the people of Corinth, he was very vulnerable to them about his own weaknesses. And in that, he was considering something new, and he was introducing a powerful concept, spiritual concept to them. And here's what it is. Since I know it is for Christ's good, I am quite content with my weaknesses. Now, wow. What has to happen internally in somebody's life where they go, you know what? When it comes to my weaknesses, I am so thankful for them. So here's the deal. We all have weaknesses, right? You have them. I have them. We have emotional weaknesses. We have physical weaknesses. We have relational and intellectual weaknesses. We have some talent weaknesses. So the reality is all of us have weaknesses. So that's not the issue. The issue is with our weaknesses, what do we do with them? And for most of us, we deny our weaknesses. We pretend They don't exist. We hide from our weaknesses. We defend our weaknesses. We blame other people because of our weaknesses. So many of us do many different things, but one of the things a lot of us do is we hide them and we don't embrace our weaknesses. But what is very interesting is social science is proving this, but social science is proving what the tradition and history of our faith teaches us, which is we get stronger. We become more resilient by embracing our weaknesses. And here's what's crazy about this whole thing. Though it is so encouraging, at least for me to hear that, wow, it's actually through my weaknesses that I'll be made strong and resilient. Though that's encouraging to my life and to my heart, there are so many times that my head just can't embrace it. I just don't want to believe it. It'll go, no. Hey, life. Hey, God. No, use my strengths. I got amazing thinking abilities. I got amazing analytic abilities. I got amazing, musical or technical abilities. I got amazing talents. No. Use my strengths to prove that I'm strong. But what's amazing in our Christian narrative is God goes, no, we all have weaknesses, and it's actually through your weaknesses, through the limping of your life, that you will persevere and become resilient. At one point, the Apostle Paul was so discouraged about what was going on at the Corinthian church, and he writes them a couple letters. But when he's trying to teach them this whole concept and to be encouraged in it, he writes them this: God deliberately chose things that the greater culture considers foolish to confound those who think they are wise. And he chose those who are powerless to confound those who are powerful. Again, the conventional idea is that, no, my strengths will determine strengths. And God's saying, you know what? I'm flipping that right over. It's actually weaknesses that will prove the strength. Now, earlier I said we all have weaknesses, and you do, right? Some of us have physical weaknesses. Some of you, you just get tired. Some of you are more prone to get sick. Some of you just have bad backs, and on and on. Some of us have physical weaknesses. Some of us have relational weaknesses. You have a partner or a spouse who's just not completely supportive of who you are and what you do. Some of you have gone sideways with a parent or parents because they think how you're living your life or how you believe your faith is wonky to them, and that dissonance is there. Some of us have a damaged family schema or a family background, and there were certain unhealthy patterns in the homes we grow up, and it's showing up in our adult patterns, how we respond or how we react to things, how we navigate issues in our love life and in our work life. These things that got hurt as a child are showing up in our adult life, and so we have relational weaknesses. Some of us have emotional weaknesses. Some of us are just more prone to get sad and to feel grief and to be depressed. Some of us are more prone to get angry quicker and lose patience. There's just certain emotional wirings that are particular to our responses and our reactions. And again, some of it ties into our earlier childhood hurts. There may have been things that not only relationally damaged us, but in the relational damage, it also left its emotional imprint, weakness on us. And then some of us just have some talent weaknesses. There are things we wish we were good at. There are things that we wanted to perform and do well in this life. And the truth is we're not. We just have weaknesses in those areas. And so we all have these limitations. And so again, to the Apostle Paul, when he's trying to encourage the Corinthian church in this is what he said. But this precious treasure, this light and power that now shines within us, is held in perishable containers. That is, our weak bodies. So everyone can see the glorious power is from God and not our own. And so how Paul is trying to encourage them that strength is made through weaknesses, he's saying that God takes this amazing blessing he gives you. God takes this amazing light and grace and mercy, and he sticks this amazing divine thing into our very human, perishable lives. Our lives that are like clay pots, that are vulnerable, fragile. They have, clay pots have ingrained weaknesses and flaws in them. What's amazing about the letters of Corinth, Paul is amazingly vulnerable in them. And at one point he writes this: I came to you in weakness, timid, and trembling. Now, when was the last time you heard a boss, a politician, somebody in authority, even a minister, when was the last time you heard them get in front of you and go, you know what, I come to you completely weak, drained, vulnerable? When was the last time? And this is exactly what Paul does. He goes, listen, I come to you in weakness, trembling with you. In fact, there's one point where they're introduced to Paul through his letters, and they go, wow, this guy must be something. And then they meet him after reading his letters, and they go, the guy in the letters and the guy in front of us are, the guy in the letters is strong. The guy in front of us is kind of weak and wimpy. And so here Paul is being very vulnerable with them. And so, and I think part of the conventional wisdom today would be, hey, Paul, buck up. Get with the action. Come on, Paul, you're a spiritual and intellectual giant. Don't come to us in weaknesses. Buck up. And it's just the opposite. Here's the reality of me, and here's the reality of my wife, Liz. We're just normal, regular people. Liz and I are not superstars in any way. We're just normal, regular people. And we also hold this hope that it's through our weaknesses, because we have many of them, that we're made resilient in this life and strength in this life. So the whole idea here is we don't live spiritually by bucking up, by pulling up our bootstraps. No, we're made strong actually through our weaknesses. So how does one grow resilient through their weaknesses? So how does one grow resilient, grow strong through their weaknesses? Well, I'll be vulnerable with my own life, and for me, it's been several things. The first one is it's learning to admit and own your weaknesses. And I'll admit to you, that is something I had to learn. That was a journey. I had spent so much time running from my weaknesses, denying them, even pretending I didn't have them. So learning to embrace them and own them is doing just that. It's doing the opposite. It's you stop pretending you don't have weaknesses. You own it and admit it. And sometimes that's a scary thing. We like to assume we're strong at things. But you just finally own it and go, you know what? I'm weak at this. You stop denying them. You stop hiding them. You stop blaming other people. A lot of times when we feel weak, we get backed into a corner. We just start blaming others or making excuses. You just begin to stop doing that. So it's learning about it, and it's beginning to get your noticer out. And just like you would do an honest evaluation of your strengths, which is a good thing to do, you start doing an honest evaluation of your weaknesses in a non-blaming, non-judgmental way. In fact, if you do it in a very judgmental way, this isn't going to work for heart transformation at all. No, if anything, you come with great compassion for yourself, and you just finally become honest about what you're weak at, and you don't pretend, you don't deny, and you just embrace it. The second one is this, and I'm going to admit to you, is a bit harder and much more humbling. It's learning to become grateful for your weaknesses, and learning to become grateful for your weaknesses in a very compassionate way towards yourself. Now, as I said, this one is a harder one to do, and it also takes a journey. And I know some of you listening to me are a bit bummed. You're like, okay, I finally watch a church sermon and the minister tells me I need to be grateful for my weaknesses. I know, it's not what you were thinking. When you can learn to be grateful for your weaknesses, it literally changes everything. You know, the Stoics had a Latin phrase for it, and it's called amor fati, which means love fate. It means when you come to anything in your life, especially weakness, if you can just come to the point where you go, okay, this is the fate, this is what I have, and you know what, I'm going to love this. I'm going to be grateful for it, I'm going to embrace it, I'm going to accept it, and amor fati, and when you can become grateful, I mean truly grateful, for your weaknesses, this is when the transformation begins. Here's this amazing thing that Paul writes the church at Corinth. Look at this. Each time he, Jesus, said, "My gracious favor is all you need. My power works best in your weakness. So I am glad to boast about my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may work through me." Again, what has happened in Paul's life where he gets to this point? Obviously, some sort of transformation where he goes, you know what, I'm going to actually brag about what I'm weak at, because when I embrace and am grateful for what I'm weak at, this is where God's power shows up in my life. So it's this whole idea of it means we stop posturing. We stop trying to be perfect. We stop trying to be the strong and the invincible one. And the reality is, some of you tuning in today, you've been ready to throw in the towel, right? You've been ready to give up. You have some sort of relational conflict in your life. You have some sort of emotional thing going on in your life. You're just swimming and drowning in this aspect of your life where you go, I just don't know if I have enough. I just don't know if I have enough strength. And when we can get to the point where we go, you know, God, I give it to you. I lean into you. I create this interdependence on you. What this does is when God touched Jacob's hip and wounded it, in a sense, what the story means is it created an interdependence forever that Jacob had on God. And so when we can embrace our weaknesses, what it does is it opens our heart to needing a spiritual life, needing God, even needing other people in our life. Listen, I know some of you are so ready to throw in the towel. these days. Some of you have some significant conflict, some relational conflict in your life that's tearing your heart out. You have some circumstantial issues and problems that seem to be insolvable right now. You got some life crisis that just doesn't seem to be changing, and it's killing you. And if the truth could be known, you are listening today going, well, I'll give it one more shot. But let me encourage you with what Paul said to Corinth. My gracious favor is all you need. My power works best. God's power works best in weak people. That's so encouraging to me. So as you face this week or you face this season that you're in, it involves being very in touch with your weaknesses and embracing that. Listen, there comes a point in all of our lives where everything that we've been dependent on is washed out. And all of our tricks to prop up our strengths, all the things we use to show we're mighty and strong, just don't seem to be working. But how this means that God's power works best in weak people, this is such an amazing opportunity for us to open up spiritually and to take our reliant heart and put our trust in God. This is how we discover our need for God. I love that old quote by Rick Warren when he's talking about this. Because you don't know God is all you need until God is all you got. And this is so true. When you realize your weaknesses, this is the opportunity where our spiritual lives and the divine shows up. Look at this other great verse that Paul writes the church at Corinth. For when I am weak, then I'm strong. The meaning here is the more I'm aware of my weaknesses, the more interdependent I am on trusting God. And I have to be honest with you, this is a lesson that David Perez me has to learn over and over and over. For when I am weak, David, that is my opportunity of when God will be strong in me. And, sometimes I'm thinking, hey, God, I'm trying to serve you. Hey, God, I'm trying to sacrifice for you. Why don't you take these weaknesses from me? But let me ask you this. If one of the foundational principles of our Christian spirituality is that God is made strong through us, through our weaknesses, then why would we want our weaknesses to be taken away? Why would we say prayers? God, take this away from me. It's through our weaknesses that God shows up. It's through our weaknesses that we're made strong and resilient. And then one of the ways that we continue to be grateful, one of the things that gratefulness does, it helps combat my own self-sufficiency. When I'm grateful for my weaknesses, it helps protect me from even my own self-isolation and thinking I can do this on my own. And Paul deals with this. Look at this. Even though I've received wonderful revelations from God, but to keep me from getting puffed up, this thorn keeps me from getting proud. 3 times I begged the Lord to take it away. Each time he said, my gracious favor is all you need. My power works best in your weakness. So here Paul has some sort of thorn. We don't know what it is. The thorn represents some sort of weakness. And he's actually gotten to, he actually got to the point where he said, God, take this away from me. But then he gets this spiritual awakening that no, it's actually through this thorn that God's graciousness shows up, his favor shows up, and how, Paul, you're made strong. So Paul's going, well, I'm going to be content with this thorn. Now, some thorns in our life are temporary, right? They come and they go. Other thorns in our lives last for a season. But certain thorns in our lives just last for our entire life. It will never get rid of it. And this seems to be the case for Paul. And what this thorn does is it continues to create a tender heart and an interdependence for God. And so this is what it means that when we're grateful and to embrace our weaknesses. And so it protects us from saying, I don't need anybody. I can go on my own. No, this is what helps our heart open up, which leads me to the last thing I want to share with you of how I'm made resilient through my weaknesses. Well, this final thing I want to share with you about how I've learned to be strong through my weaknesses is the last part for me to realize. I'm sure there's other things I'll have to learn, but it was learning to share them openly with other people. It was learning and gaining the courage to share my weaknesses with other people. Folks, I spent so much time hiding my weaknesses, running from my weaknesses. I spent so much time being ashamed of my weaknesses because at that point, I believed it was my weaknesses that made my life weak. So, right? You would only experience shame. But when I finally learned this principle, I learned that when I can be vulnerable with my life, with safe people, of course, learning to share my weaknesses with safe people, when I could learn to do that, there was a mysterious strength in that. It felt so right and felt so healthy and felt so releasing to be able to share my weaknesses in very safe places. Liz has always been a safe place for me. Certain friends have been safe places for me. A therapist has been a safe place for me. I now have a very safe congregation to share my weaknesses with. And so when it just has this amazing irony that when you actually can be vulnerable with other people, with who you truly are and how you need them, oh my gosh, this has such a way of building a resilience and a strength. I mean, my words sometimes can't even describe it. There's an amazing verse in the New Testament where the half-brother of Jesus, James, talks about this. Look at this. Share your faults one to another and pray for each other that you may be healed. Oh gosh, I love that word, healing. When you can find safe people, safe places, a safe church to be truly who you are, where you can share your weaknesses, where they're not only heard, but they are embraced by others, and you experience others' acceptance and compassion because they believe that you are made strong through your weaknesses by embracing them and sharing them. When you experience that, there is healing. Healing is resilience. Healing is strength. And so my hope for you, my prayer for you is that you have safe people. You have a safe place. SPERO DEI is a safe place where you can share your weaknesses. So I started this by saying Christianity has some amazing paradoxes, and isn't this one of them? That we're actually made strong, made resilient through our weaknesses, when we can admit them, own them, when we no longer hide them, run from them, pretend they don't exist, but we embrace them, believing that it's actually God's strength that shows up through our weaknesses. So it shows that He's in our life, and it creates an interdependence of our life upon His. And when I can share that with other weak people who are also sharing that in a community, oh my gosh, the resilience it gives you personally and the resilience it gives you communally is an amazing thing to see. It's an amazing thing to experience. So may you embrace your weaknesses. May you be grateful for your weaknesses. May you hold on to the trust that God's power shows up best in you when you embrace your weaknesses, own them, and air them to God and air them in safe places with each other. May you experience His grace. May you experience His healing. Let's pray. God, I pray for my friends. I pray for those like me who have spent a lifetime running and hiding and denying their weaknesses, have made a life of excusing their weaknesses, or who have hidden in the shame of believing if they admit them, they'll be rejected. And part of that fear is real because there have been certain environments where we have shared our weaknesses, or they have been exposed and we have been dinged for them and rejected for them. I pray that all of us could experience the spiritual healing that really in your story is this great paradox, that it's through our weaknesses that we are made strong. So I pray that we would find safe places, safe people, safe congregations like SPERO DEI, where we can share and own and embrace our weaknesses so your gracious favor shows up, strengthening us, enduring us, and making us resilient. May God bless you today.
My suffering doesn't mean my Father's forgotten me. My wandering isn't threatening. My Father sits here with me. My Father sits here with me. And what if broken just means I'm open? And what if this is what it looks like to receive? Though my journey has been filled with sorrow, what if this is where you wanna be with me? And what if this is where you show me how to be free? More faithful than my closest friend, you've always been here with me. Love without end, love that defends. You'll always be here with me. I know you'll always be here with me. And what if broken just means I'm open? And what if this is what it looks like to see? Though my journey has been filled with sorrow, what if this is where you wanna meet with me? And what if this is where you show stay empty. I won't stay broken. I won't stay empty for long, 'cause you fill me up, God. I won't stay broken, no. I won't stay empty for long, 'cause you build me up, God. I won't stay broken for long, no. Oh, I won't stay empty for long, 'cause you fill me up, God. I won't stay broken for long. I know I won't stay empty for long, 'cause I'm broken and I'm open. I know this is what it looks like to receive. Even though my journey has been filled with sorrow, I know this is where you want me with me. And I know this is where you show me. I know this is where you show me. I know this is where you show me I can be free. Free.
Okay, folks, before we go, I just have to say thank you. Thank you to all of you who are financially giving and supporting and donating to SPERO DEI. And the reason I'm so grateful is, one, because of your generosity. It just speaks well of who you are, and I want to thank you for that. I want you to know we here at SPERO DEI appreciate it, so thank you. But I also want to let you know, on a serious note, my gosh, we need it. It actually is helping us make it. It's actually helping us survive. And for those of you who are watching and you have yet to give to SPERO DEI, and perhaps SPERO DEI is speaking to you, I just want to reach you as well to say, boy, if this place is speaking to you in the kind of Christianity that is meaningful to you, we really need it to be able to keep all of this going. So it's very easy to give at SPERO DEI. All you have to do is go to SPERODEI.com, look in the upper right-hand corner, and you'll just see the word give. Just tap on it. And it's so easy and it's so secure. It's as easy and secure as Amazon. And there you can give one time online, or you can even become a recurring giver, where you give once a week, twice a month, once a quarter. It's up to you how you want to schedule it. But I just want to thank you for all of those who are giving, and I want to let those of you who are watching, who are part of us, to let you know we need it and invite you to help us make it. So thank you so much, and we will see all of you next week.